Hey everyone, what's up? Yeah, I thought I'd come on here and kind of do a little breakdown, if you will, of the Incredibles 2 trailer, or the Olympics sneak peek trailer that we got a couple days ago. Now, I talked about this along with Venom, along with the trailers of Venom and Ant-Man and Wasp, and I kind of gave my thoughts on all of them. But I thought I'd pick out Incredibles 2 as Incredibles 2 because that's the one a lot of people are looking the most forward to this year. That's the one people are looking most forward to this year, probably more so than any other movie, animated-wise or even live action. In fact, if I was to go out and predict what I think the top grossing films would be, I think they're all going to be superhero related. I mean, we know Black Panther already has broken some records in just what's it been? Less than 24 hours? It's broken a lot of records. It's going to continue to do so. So we know Black Panther is going to be a hit. We know Avengers: Infinity War is going to probably top that, because that's a movie people have been waiting to see for a long time. We know Ant-Man and Wasp might also break some records. And we know that Incredibles 2 is going to join them. So when you look at it, the top 5 films, or if you look at a top 5 of, if you were to predict a top 5 highest grossing films for 2018, you're looking at 4 of them right there already. That's the truth. You're looking at 4 of them already. But with that said, let's look at Incredibles 2. Now, I talked about the trailer. The first time they did the teaser trailer and they announced this was going to happen, I gave my thoughts on it. You can check that out here on my channel. And I stick by some of what I said there, even now. I mean, obviously, we see that the focus is going to kind of be on Elastigirl as the main heroine, as the main protagonist, but we also see it looks like it's going to go back and forth. Now, the one thing I said in my live movie trailers discussion video yesterday is I said that basically I feel that, a lot of people feel it looks like it's going to be a rehash somewhat of the original story, but with the roles reversed. However, I don't think it's just going to be a rehash of that story. I think they're also going to throw in elements of something familiar, of something story-wise familiar as well. Something that a lot of audiences have seen throughout movies and television and even comics and any kind of media. You see, we may get a rehashing, if you will, of the original story and elements from it, but we're also going to get, I got a feeling, elements of a story arc to where Helen, as we see here, is chosen to be the representation or the representative of trying to bring dignity and respect back to superheroes. Since she's the one that's chosen to do that, and we see that one of the places she's staying in is a hotel, something tells me we may get some elements to where she, I wouldn't say, I don't know if they would do this. I mean, when they did the first, when Brad Bird created the first Incredibles and the story arc for that, Brad Bird created a situation to where Helen thought that Bob was cheating on her, because she saw one of the colors on his shirt had lipstick on it, and it wasn't hers. So, with that said, basically, what I'm getting at, folks, what I'm getting at is if Brad Bird is going to keep this true to what The Incredibles were, or what made the first one good, then you're going to expect some conflict in there as well between the Parr family, mostly Bob and Helen. And what I see happening, and again, like I said, they probably will, I'm not saying they won't, but they probably will rehash some of the original story elements from the first one, but with the roles reversed. And I know I'm sounding like I'm repeating myself, so I do apologize. But I also think they're going to go and throw in the elements of Helen being chosen to be this representative, but being in the spot, but by being this representative and being in the spotlight, right, it starts to go to her head. In other words, her ego starts to get a little out of control, if you know what I mean. Now, we don't know if that is going to be thrown in there. We don't know if Brad Bird would do that. But I do see if that's a scenario, or at least possibly a scenario he could go down, along with rehashing parts of the original film, some story elements from the original film, then yeah, I could probably see them doing that. Not saying they would and not saying they won't, but I could probably see them doing that. Now, one thing I mentioned when I first talked about this a couple months ago, and I'll talk about it again, is if you're going to put a majority of the focus, or at least 50%, 50 or 60% of the focus on Helen, Elastigirl, then you need to do with her and the rest of the family something that needs to be done. You need to basically expand on their powers. You need to have the powers evolve and grow with them. That's what you need to do. You need to have the powers evolve and grow. And if you're going to have Elastigirl be the main center focus, be the main focus, or at least the semi-main focus in the story, then what you need to do, honestly, is expand on her powers. Nowadays we are in a world where if a character like this is presented with these kind of powers, you got to let them have a little bit of fun with them. Be a little mischiefy, maybe try out things that they've never tried before, have been told what to, basically be able to do things no one else thought they could do, or they thought even they couldn't do. I go back to the hotel scene that we see in the trailer, in the Olympics sneak peek, and she's in a bathrobe. So it's either indicating that that scene when she's talking to Bob on the phone, thanking him for the fact that he's there and she's able to do, or thanking him for the fact that since he's able to stay at home and take care of the kids, she's able to do what she's doing. That scene either takes place before or after she takes a bath or a shower. Now, the way I look at it is you got to go, and I'm not trying to be offensive by this, not trying to be offensive. Lord knows I'm not. But this opens the door for whenever this scene takes place, that before or after the scene, you need to have Helen soak in a tub. And I don't just mean soak in it, but also show that she has a power that lets her, but also allow her to use a power that we didn't see in the first one. Allow her to kind of semi-liquefy her body. In other words, she's able to expand it, she's able to change it into a lot of things. One thing a lot of people know about characters with that kind of power is they can also not completely, but if necessary they can, liquefy the body, make it so soft that it's like liquid. So what I think they should do, if if they decide to expand on the powers, and depending on when that scene takes place, where she's talking to Bob on the phone, that before or after, you need to have her do a scene. You need to, and maybe they did, I'm not saying they didn't, and again, I don't mean any offense by this, but they need to do a scene where she soaks in a tub, maybe a hot tub, and she just lets her body go completely loose to where it's almost completely liquid, and she feels like it looks like she can almost melt into the tub, but she's able to reform herself or something like that. Basically, like, let's say she's hanging her arms and legs over the tub, and they just start to elongate and then kind of pull a little bit on the ground. They kind of pull a little bit, in other words, once they kind of elongate onto the ground and her hands and feet hit the ground, that basically instead of just them staying as regular feet and hands, that they start to they start to smush together and start to flatten out like puddles. You kind of get the idea. And again, I don't mean any offense by this, but if you're going to have her be one of the focuses, and you're going to have a hotel scene with her on the phone in a bathrobe, I think it only makes sense that you go in that direction. Again, it only makes sense, in my opinion. But she's not the only one whose powers should be evolving or expanded on. We know that Jack is going to have the same issues, if not more so, in the trailer that he did in the first film, or at the end of the first film. So, to me, Jack shouldn't be the only one you expand on. You should also have Violet and Dash. I mean, heck, I can't speak too much about Violet because we don't know if she's in agreement with Dash. She's a teenager. But so is Dash. She's kind of like a preteen, or he's preteen, or whatever. But if you're going to expand upon the Parr family's powers, then you need to expand on Dash and Violet's. Dash should be able to not just run across oceans and all that, or run when he, go basically Sonic Flash-wise, if you will. But he should also be able to do more than that. And I think with this movie, what you need to do is have it to where perhaps when the family, because we know the family is going to be together fighting against the main antagonist or antagonist, whoever it or they may be, whoever they or they all might be. So you need to have Dash's powers expand and evolve to the point that he could do exactly, let's say, like the Flash can do, and that's run around the world in a circle. You have Dash do that. You have his powers expand to that at least. Then yeah, it would be an homage and a nod to the Flash, but it would show that you're not just focusing on expanding Elastigirl's powers, or Jack's powers, or Mr. Incredible's powers. You're focusing on the entire family. And Violet's another one. We know she can go invisible, but her clothes remain. We know that the only thing clothing-wise that goes invisible along with her is her Incredibles outfit. Is a superhero outfit. We know that. So it only makes sense that her powers should start expanding and evolving as well. And her powers should get to the point to where it's not just her superhero outfit that goes invisible when she does. It should also be her regular clothing that she wears. That too should go invisible. And you know what's even crazier? Sometimes when characters have that kind of power, they're also able to what I'm saying is, what's even crazier is when characters like Violet have those kind of powers can also develop and evolve to the point that not only can they go invisible, but they can also do, like what Kitty Pryde does in the X-Men. Powers, depending on how the creators view the powers, an invisibility power can develop or can evolve and expand to the point that not only can the character go invisible, not only could the regular clothes go invisible with them, but they can also start to phase through things. They can also phase through walls. They can also phase through people. You know, they can create shields and all that, but as their powers expand, they start to develop new powers that are associated with them that they didn't think were possible. And one of them for Violet could be she could phase through inanimate objects. Or people, for that matter. And, you know, you could have this power occur, this new power be discovered by Violet. Like, let's say we don't know if she still has a crush or is still going with this one guy we saw at the end of the first film. But let's say she is going with him or she's moved on to somebody else. Right. So let's say she's moved on to somebody else. Here is where the power could develop. She could discover this new addition to her powers, her already established powers. She could see this cute guy that she wants to talk to because maybe she's moved on from the other guy. Probably found out he wasn't exactly what she was looking for. But just like in the first film, if you want to rehash some elements, she becomes a little too shy. And instead of going invisible, she tries to find a place to hide. And just when it looks like she can't find a place to hide, she leans against the locker and she phases right through it. That could be how she discovers her power. Like, she could basically phase through her locker, and that's one way for her to hide. Again, I'm just saying it's possible. It is possible. What I mean by possible is I'm saying it's possible that this could be one of the powers that evolves from what she has, gets expanded from her already established invisibility powers. Now, a lot of people look at this and they're thinking, okay, this is good, but we still don't know who the villain is. We don't have a clue who the main antagonist is. Now, a lot of people are believing it could be the guy that sets up this whole thing with Elastigirl being the spokeswoman or the spokeshero to bring back superheroes, to bring a positive light onto superheroes. And she might be. This guy, I can't think of his name right now, the guy that sets it up, he might be. But we also know that this guy has a wife. And Lily at IGN, when she posted the video about when she posted the theory and breakdown video on the Incredibles 2 Olympic trailer, she was the first to comment in the comment section by saying she believes it's this guy's wife. And I'm going to look up the name of it. Hold on. Excuse me. Alright. She believes that the villain could be Evelyn Dever. Or Dever, I think. Hold on. If you hear anything in the background, I do apologize. Hold on.
Our prayers have been answered and premiered during the 2000. So let's dive right in. We start the trailer and noted that the Incredibles family dinner. The dinner scene closer, Lucius approaches the family with a note. A tycoon wants to know anything about Frozone or Mr. Here we get a glimpse of one. The other three new characters include Evelyn Dever, Void, and the Ambassador.
Okay, the guy's name, if you just heard it there, I don't know if you heard it, is called Winston Dever. The other is Evelyn Dever. Now, we don't know if Evelyn is his wife or his sister or whoever she is. But according to Lily of IGN, she's predicting it's got to be Evelyn Dever that could be the main antagonist. What she points in the comment section is it just gives it away. And that might be true. It does give it away in a sense, depending on the name. But the name doesn't have to be anything.
The film, or is he jarring? Winston, the true villain of the Ambassador. So is Winston Evelyn Dever, Void. So is Winston Evelyn Dever.
Evelyn Dever. That's what it is. Yeah, Evelyn Dever. Evelyn Dever. So, she points out that the name just gives it away, but let's not forget, lately, Pixar, when it comes to the antagonist, always throw a red herring, and she even mentions that about Winston. Could Winston be that red herring? And again, the one thing we've noticed about Disney animated films and Disney-Pixar films is you never truly know who the villain is until almost the third act or the end of the second act. You don't know that. Like I said, you don't know who the true villain is. I mean, you want a good example? Take a look at Zootopia. We didn't know who the real villain was until the end of the film. Towards the end of the film. I mean, who would have known that? Right? We didn't know who the true antagonist was or who was truly behind the whole predator situation until the end. We didn't know who it was. Okay, we didn't know it was the sheep lady. I think that's her name. I can't think of her name. Let me check. I got the movie right here. Well, whoever it is, whatever her name is, it's something, Lamb or something. We didn't know it was her until the very end. The same thing with Toy Story 1 and 2. Toy Story 2 and 3, I should say. We didn't know that the sheriff, I think that's what he was, or the deputy, Stinky Pete, I think that's what his name was, or even Love-A-Lots, or Hug-A-Lots, whatever his name is, in Toy Story 3, we didn't really know they'd be the antagonist until certain moments throughout. We didn't know that. We didn't get that, hold on, I'm trying to fix something here. We didn't get that thought process until, like I said, either the second act, the end of, let's say, the first act, or the end of the second act, or even towards the end of the film. We didn't know that. We didn't know, basically, who was the true antagonist and who wasn't. You see what I'm saying? We didn't know any of that. The point is, Disney and Pixar have had a history of pretty much already, well, what I'm saying is Disney and Pixar have had a history of pretty much making you think it's someone, but then it turns out to be someone else. Yeah. Comic books based on superheroes, any media based on established superheroes or original heroes have had that history to when a certain story calls for it, they will throw that red herring at you, and who you thought is the villain turns out to be somebody else. Now, with that said, who is going to be the villain? We know that I have a feeling, my opinion, my theory, I have a feeling that the Underminer is not just going to be at the beginning of the film, he's going to be throughout. Like, he might get stopped at the beginning, but he'll be back throughout the film. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's in cahoots with whoever the true antagonist is. Whether it is Winston Dever, whether it's Floyd, or it's Evelyn Dever. We don't know. Or even the ambassador, Floyd the ambassador. I don't know if that's his full name, Floyd the ambassador, or whatever. We don't know. Evelyn Dever might sound like a name that you would give to the main antagonist, but like Lily said, Winston could be the red herring, but so could Evelyn. Evelyn herself could be the red herring. For all we know, Floyd the ambassador, or the ambassador, if it's two separate people, could be the main antagonist. Think about that. If someone's an ambassador, and they say, hey, we want you to get this individual to represent heroes and bring them back, only for them in the end to show that the whole thing of trying to represent superheroes in a better light was nothing more than a setup to further negate them. In other words, further get the people, get the crowd, get the populace to go against them. Then who better than an ambassador who could have a lot more power and a lot more say over a situation than, let's say, someone that says, hey, I want you to bring back superheroes. We need Elastigirl. The point is, we don't know who the real villain is. We know that one of the villains is going to be the Underminer. Because again, you can't just bring him in at the end of the film, at the end of the first film, and then just have him gone after the first, and just have him gone at the end, at the beginning of the second film. No, you need to have reason for him being there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they team him up with whoever the true antagonist is, whether it's Winston, Evelyn, or the Ambassador. My money is going to be on the Ambassador, because even though Evelyn could be a logical choice according to Lily, who has more power than those two? An ambassador. And again, think about this. If an ambassador is the one that comes out and says, hey, I want this, I want you to do this, only for it to turn out to be nothing more than a fraud, a lie, to make superheroes not look good like the idea is proposed to do, but make them look even worse, then there you go. Perfect scenario. Again, I'm not saying that that is exactly what they're going to do. I'm not saying that Evelyn Dever won't be the main antagonist. I'm not saying that the Underminer won't just be gone after the beginning of the second film. I'm not saying that Winston's not the antagonist. I'm just saying, knowing how Disney and works and Disney and Pixar work, you never can truly tell. Heck, some people even going as far as saying Jack could be the villain. How could Jack be the villain when he started developing his powers while the babysitter was watching him? Well, the family was out on a mission. Well, basically was out doing what they were doing in the first film. Who's to say he's the villain? I mean, you might say that at the end towards the end, that you might get that, just like in the first one, you might get that, oh, it's over, but then, oh, wait a minute, what's this? What's going on here? Something more, and then boom, here you go, another scenario. So we don't know. We don't know what it could be. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if it is what some people, if there are some rehash of elements from the first film, then that could explain why, as Lily puts it, Evelyn Dever would be maybe the main antagonist. Maybe the one that the Underminer is associated with. Maybe the one that's making everything that's supposed to represent superheroes in a great light into a negative light. And again, if they are rehashing in some way elements from the first film, and I say when I say in some way, not Subway, I'm sorry, but in some way, if they're rehashing in some way, I should say, then let's remember what the main villain's plot was. The main villain's plot was not only did he want to show that anybody could be heroes if given the right opportunity or given the right dose of power or whatever, but Sinestro, what's his name? Can't think of it right now. Let me check my movies. Hold on. Syndrome. Yeah, that's right, Syndrome. Sorry. If his main reasoning for doing what he did was not just to make everybody a superhero, to basically make superheroes irrelevant, but also was to get back at Mr. Incredible for not making him his sidekick. Because let's be honest, that was the main reason for his whole situation, because his whole plot, his whole idea was, hey, if I make everybody a superhero, we won't need superheroes at all. And the main reason he wanted to do that was to get even for the fact that Mr. Incredible didn't make him his sidekick. So, if they were to, and I'm sorry if I went a little long on that, but if they rehash, like some people wondering, rehash moments and elements, story elements from the first film in some way, kind of rehash certain elements from the first story in some way, but kind of put a twist on them, then Evelyn Dever, if she is the main antagonist, could have a history with Helen. Could have a backstory history with Helen that has caused her to go this route. Maybe something happened between the two in high school or something like that, and she's never forgiven her. Maybe Evelyn used to be Helen's best friend, and then something happened, and Evelyn grew bitter and vowed to get back at Helen or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of the story arc if Evelyn Dever is the main antagonist. Because think about it. You want to get even with the one person you felt ruined your life, you thought was your best friend, and now you see the best opportunity to do so. I mean, think about what the reasons could be. Could it be the fact that Evelyn had a crush on Bob, and instead of Bob taking notice on her, Bob noticed Helen? I'm just saying. Could it be that maybe she grew jealous of Helen's popularity when she became a superhero or something? I'm just saying. I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't know what it could be if she's the main antagonist and they kind of recycle story elements from the first film but put a twist on them. But that could be a reason. Overall, though, we can theorize and talk. We can theorize all we want up until June 15th. We won't know until June 15th, I think that's the release date, as to what really is going on here. Now, there's no doubt we'll probably get another trailer. I would assume the next trailer we're going to get is going to be when Avengers Infinity War comes out. That's when I would assume it's going to be released. And we might, in that, get more of an idea as to what we're going to get in the first film, in the new film, when it comes to who the antagonist may be, as to what the plot's going to be more like. We'll probably get more of an idea. I mean, I understand why the studio is kind of keeping it low key, because they want you to theorize. They want you to think about the possibilities of what could be. But I think that we are now in an age to where 14 years ago, this, theorizing and discussing and thinking, okay, how is this going to work out? How's that going to work out? Oh, I think I know where this is going to go. Even though it was prevalent back then, it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. And it being as prevalent as it is now, to me, is an indication that a lot of us theorizing and guessing may be 50, if not 75% on the ball. That's my guess. Now, one thing I know a lot of people are worried about is it going to do good? Like I said at the beginning, it's going to be one of the top 5 highest grossing films of this year. No doubt about it. And a majority of it, and the reason being is because the majority of the top 5 grossing films, at least 4 of them, are going to be superhero related. I mean, it's already starting with Black Panther, then you got Avengers, and then Ant-Man and Wasp. I mean, come on. I think it's only obvious. So, when I look at this, sorry about that. But when I look, my chin hit the mic. But when I look at The Incredibles 2, I look at a film that's going to do good. It's going to be a box office hit. It's probably going to break opening records for that week of June, if not for the month of June. So I see it doing decently well. I see it doing very well. And again, as far as what the plot and who the villains and antagonists are, again, I can understand why the studios are keeping it low key, because that way we can keep theorizing as to who the antagonists may be, what twists and turns we may get, and what direction they may go in, rehashing with twist, or rehashing and remolding certain story elements from the first film, what have you. So that's all really I'm going to say on it. Those are just my theories and opinions after seeing the second trailer during the Olympics, the sneak peek. I'm sorry this went a little long. I will put in the description to take your time in listening to this. It is very long. It is about 36 minutes almost. So I do apologize for that. But again, that's just my theory on The Incredibles 2. After watching the sneak peek trailer. I think it's going to be a very good movie. I think it's going to break a lot of records when it comes out on June 15th. It's mostly for the month of June. So that's all I'm going to say. So thank you all for listening and watching. And take your time listening to this, and I am out. Comments are welcome.